Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In order to be able to progress on the path towards reality, to be able to progress on the path to understanding truth, we have to know certain things. Man needs to know what reality is. He needs to know what his plenitude is. And he needs to know what is incomplete in him. He needs to know what is profit for him, and he needs to know what is loss for him. And man also needs to know about God. We need to know and believe very strongly that there is a God. Now, no one's ever seen him, nor knows him, but we have to believe that he is here. And he is, and we are explained, without form. He's without race. He's without religion. To realize truth is to find God. He is limitless, grace, and love. He lives within man as a great power. He lives within everything as a great power. But he has no specific race or religion. Man is the loftiest of Allah's creation. And when Allah created his creation, he created it with levels of consciousness. Different ones of his creations have different levels of consciousness. Man has additional levels of consciousness beyond that of animals. And with these additional levels of consciousness, he is able to understand the qualities of God, the 3,000 gracious qualities of God, and he is able to bring these about within his own being. When God created Adam, he created within him the nur in his forehead. Some call it the Gnostic eye, some call it the divine eye. And through the development of man, through the development of the qualities within man, through man becoming godly, through his qualities, through taking them on, this third eye could open. And if it opens, then man will know where he came from, where he is going, and what the purpose of his existence is. In order to be able to follow this trajectory, we have to know about the levels of consciousness. There is sense, awareness, and intellect. All of the animals, the birds, the creations other than man have these three levels of consciousness. But man has four more. After intellect, man has discernment or judgment. Then he has wisdom, subtle wisdom, and divine luminous wisdom. And it is these wisdoms that bring you into a relationship with God. And what wisdom does is it begins to understand truth as opposed to falsehood. It begins to understand reality as opposed to illusion. It begins to understand the difference between torpor and clear-sightedness. It begins to understand the difference between good and evil. Now, Satan has read everything, just like man. He has the capability of reading. He's read everything. But in everything that Satan has read, there's one thing that he hasn't found, and that is he hasn't found the truth. And that's because of his arrogance, his pride, his self-righteousness, his detestation of other people, his backbiting, and all of the qualities that are of hell are within him. To find truth is to find the path that takes you towards reality. God is truth. God is reality. Illusion is other than that. Satan is attached to his arrogance and his pride right from the beginning. He saw the creation of man and objected to it because he thought he was better than and couldn't understand why all of this attention was being paid to man. But why did he object? What is at the core of that objection? At the core is the competition between himself and everything else. At the core is I, you. At the core is the lack of unity and the seeing of differences. Animals don't have higher consciousness. They stop at intellect. They defecate where they sleep. They defecate where they eat. They don't see differences. They don't understand the difference between torpor and clear-sightedness. They don't understand the difference between good and evil. They don't have that capacity. Man has that capacity. But if that capacity is not used, then man is no different than an animal. Because what is an animal? He's a form. He takes on a certain visage. Uh, he can look like a lion, or he can look like a tiger, or he can look like a bear, or he can look like a human and still be an animal. What differentiates us from animals is not our look, not our intellect. What differentiates man from animal are the qualities that man is capable of taking on, and the fact that he, in fact, does take on these qualities. If he doesn't take on these qualities, then he stays in the state of animal. So there are plenty of men who look like animals. In the same way that Satan hasn't read about the truth, there are men who haven't read about the truth, and they're not interested in looking for the truth. And when they are not interested in looking for the truth, and they aren't interested in cleansing themselves so that they become the truth, they remain with their arrogance, with their karma, with their illusion, with their inability to be harmonious with other beings, with their separations, with their differences, with my religion and your religion, with a lack of unity. Once you process the qualities within your being, an internal change occurs. You become different than Satan. You become different than the animals. You become different than form alone. You've entered into the state of formlessness, and in entering into the state of formlessness, the qualities that are formless begin to have an effect on your being. And we've talked about this often, and we're all aware of the fact love has no shape or form. Compassion has no form. Mercy has no form. You can't weigh these things. They are without the ability to be defined in the way form is defined by mass. They're outside of that realm. Yet, we're very much aware of the fact that they exist. And all of us have had inklings of love, and we've seen how that changes our being. So, if we want to move on this path towards God, a simple instruction would be learn to love. A simple instruction would be love the ones you encounter. Love them for themselves. Love them because Allah put a soul in them. Love them for God because God loves them. Love them because Allah placed within them that same holy breath that He placed within you. So love them because of their sameness to you. Recognize their sameness to you. If you can do that, you can begin to melt and melt from arrogance, melt from jealousy, melt from illusion, melt from the qualities that are satanic in their nature. There is a great power that is God. And God's benevolence is shown through His grace and His mercy. And this benevolence is without form. And once we have the certitude within us that He exists, and nothing can sway us from that certitude that He exists, and we surrender to the qualities that are His, if we surrender to love, if we surrender to mercy, if we surrender to compassion, if we surrender to contentment, if we surrender to these qualities, then we begin to understand the unity that exists within existence. However, if we stay in the animal form, we will continue to see differences. If we stay in the animal form, unity will not be visible to us. We'll see everything is different, just as animals see everything as different. And man sees everything as different. As we become engulfed within the qualities, the world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. As we steer away from the qualities, the world becomes larger and larger and larger. And then there are all of these conflicts. There are conflicts of race. There are conflicts of nationality. There are conflicts of religion. There are conflicts of real estate. There are all these qualities that exist when man is in an animalistic position. But as he steers away from these animalistic positions, all of these conflicts disappear. If we can understand that Allah has no religion, then why are we fighting about religion? If Allah has no race, then why are we fighting about race? If Allah has no color, then why are we fighting about color? If Allah has no form, then why are we fighting about form? If our objective is to come close to Allah, if our objective is to take on the qualities of Allah, if our objective is to become godly, we have to give up all of the things that are not godly. Separations and differences are not godly. God has no enemies. God is unique and alone. God's power is such that no matter how much you take from him, he is in no way diminished. He is in no way made less. He loses nothing. He can continually give and he loses nothing. He has existed forever, and he is the power that is within each being. He created a string of prophets that he sent into this world. And now all of the prophets were created by that same God. Moses was created by Allah. Abraham was created by Allah. Joseph was created by God. Muhammad was created by God. They were all created by God. There is no separation among them. And what these prophets were sent here to do is to aid us in this journey through form towards the formless, towards understanding the formless. And they have been sent as assists to us to give us an idea of what it is that we need to do. And the most basic of understandings is, unless you can act appropriately within form, you will never be able to act appropriately outside of form. You're not going to get to that state. Satan and the satanic qualities are all about acting inappropriately within form. Now think about that. Arrogance is form over form. Arrogance is a battle of form. Jealousy is a battle of form. Look at all of those qualities. They're all about somehow controlling form, somehow bringing form into your being and taking form away from your being, and the competition of form between men. This constant competition in form. What is jealousy? I want what you have. What is arrogance? I have what you don't have. It's all about having and controlling. In the 18th century, a Norwegian economist wrote a book on economics and set forth a theory of why people buy things and why people have things. And the name of the book was The Theory of Conspicuous Consumption. And if you have a chance to read it, it's really interesting because it shows you from a worldly point of view from a straight economic point of view, that people buy things not because of their utilitarian value for them, but to be able to show others that they have them, so that their ego can be boosted and they somehow can create a differentiation between themselves and others as to who is the more important in this world. There's a whole slew of actors in this world. We're all actors in this world. And we're all on different stages in this world. And we all watch different stages in this world. As we become more attuned to the qualities, we can tell the difference between the actors who are animals and the actors who are humans. And we can then become close to the humans and stay away from the animals. It's unfortunate that we are surrounded by men who are animals. But look at the state of the world. Look at the wars in the world. Is there an area in the world where there isn't conflict? Is there an area in the world where men aren't fighting over power and real estate? Is there an area in the world where men aren't in conflict? It's everywhere. And this is the state of animals. And as long as we allow ourselves to adhere to these states, we are going to remain animalistic. So if we want to move, we have to analyze our state. We have to look at ourselves. Which way are we going? Are we going more and more towards being in conflict with form and spending our life juggling form? Or are we going more and more to releasing ourselves from that conflict, to releasing ourselves from that constant interaction and that need to acquire? Have we been able to become the ones who stop hoarding form? If we can do that, we'll find our way. If we can give up our attachment to form, we can find our way. But form is not just physical possessions. Form is also blood ties. Form is also religion. Form is also caste. Form is also color. Form is also nationality. Form is all of the things that separate one man from another. And when we reach the state where there are no separations, then we have gone beyond form. And we've entered into the realm of the formless, which is God's realm. And if you're interested in entering into God's realm, then you have to enter into the realm of the formless. Otherwise, you haven't escaped from the lowest level of understanding. You haven't escaped from the Shariat. You haven't escaped from how to act appropriately. Now, within the various religions, they all have a Shariat. They call it different things. In Catholicism, it's canon law. In Judaism, it's called halacha. In Islam, it's called Shariat. But their Shariat is about the preservation of their religion. True Shariat is about the release from form and learning how to act in a way that releases you from form, that releases you from blood ties, that releases you from family interactions that keep you going in one direction. My teacher said more than once, animals do what their parents did. And if the extent of what he does is just copy his parents and go on with what he is told and taught by his parents, how much difference is there between him and an animal? Think about that. You need to make a leap. You need to make a leap outside of the mundane, outside of the ordinary. You need to go where men have not gone before. You have to have the courage to take that leap into the unknown. You have to have the courage to let go of everything that you have held onto that centered your being, that gave you your sense of who you are, that gave you your identity. So, can we let go of our identity and move into that open space where identities don't exist because all that exists is God? Can we understand how to do that? Can we make that move? In order to make that move, we don't go in search of God. We go in search of wisdom, which means we try and find the qualities, understand the qualities, imbibe the qualities, incorporate the qualities, and act with the qualities. You can't have a bag of qualities if they aren't part of your action. You can't have a bag of qualities that you carry around with you but don't pay any attention to them. You have to become them. As you become them, you become different. And you go through this world with a light. A light emanates from those who carry God's qualities. A light emanates from those who are the bearers of that light. He is a power beyond our ability to describe. He is a power beyond description. And certain things have to happen to us for us to be able to enter into that state. When you grow a banana tree, you have to water it, you have to fertilize it, you have to watch over it. And the bananas grow in bunches. And when bananas have finally gone from bloom to fruit, you have to sever that bunch of the bananas from the tree for it to be useful. Now, we are raised by our parents, and internally, we are raised by our mind and desire. Our mind and desire is what works through the intellect to take care of us within this physical world. But there has to come a time when we have become mature enough to sever ourselves from our mind and desire. Because our mind and desire is limited to the intellect and the physical world. The mind and desire can never know God, can never find God. So we need to sever ourselves from mind and desire in the same way that a bunch of bananas is taken off its plant in order to be useful. For us to be among those who come to know God, we have to be severed from our mind and desire. It takes lots of work. And it takes great courage because our identity is wrapped up in our mind and desire. Our identity is wrapped up in thinking that is who we are. Can you give up your ego? Can you give up your sense of self? Can you give up everything you've always held dear, understanding that everything that you've seen up to now is illusion? That nothing is real? That all of it is visions of the eye, and that the visions of the eye aren't real? Imagine yourself as a light form. Give yourself the opportunity to see yourself as a light form. And then what happens? What happens to a life form? How is a light form different than a physical form? What is it that a light form needs, and what is it that a physical form needs? So you'll begin to learn that the things that you think are so important for your existence aren't really important to your existence. God does not look for rewards. God does not look to gain anything. He has no selfishness. He does everything out of a sense of duty and out of a sense of acting on behalf of others. I saw this when I was with my sheikh while he was in his body. He did not act on his own behalf. He was always acting on behalf of others. And he gave his life to everyone else in order to assist them on this path that he knew was the only path to take in this existence, which is the path to understand your Creator. God expects something from us. He gave each of us within us this section within us that protects us. He gave each of us this soul, and he gave each of us this breath that he blew into us. He expects us to bring it back to him and to mix with him and to merge with him. And unless we take on this path of letting go of form, we can't fulfill our obligation to him. He is benevolent towards all his beings. He is gracious towards all his beings. He protects and sustains and nourishes all his beings. When he created them, he created food for each of them and gave them each a portion. And everything is provided for. Moses was walking on Mount Sinai. Moses' wife was pregnant. And in Moses' mind, he was thinking about his wife instead of the glory of his Lord who was taking him to get divine words. And God called out to Moses, Moses, but Moses was lost in thought of his wife. And he called him again, Moses. Moses was still lost. He called him a third time, Moses. And Moses said, yes, God. And God said, Moses, I am with you. I protect you. I sustain you. Yet you individually, through your egocentric self, are worrying about your wife. Moses, you see that stone next to your foot? Kick it. And he did. And he saw a frog and a blade of grass and a drop of water on the frog. God said, I provided the grass for that frog, and I provided the water for that frog. You don't know that they exist. You cannot even comprehend the extent of what it is that I care for and what it is that I do. So, Moses, give your attention to me and allow me to take care of your wife. Allow me to be the one who makes sure that in her pregnancy, she is all right. It's like that. What is the extent of our certitude in the faith of God? How much do we think we're doing, and how much do we think God's doing? How much are we willing to surrender and allow God to take over? And how much do we think we have to hold on to and we have to worry about? He is greater than anything we can imagine. He is closer to us than our parents. He is more involved with us than anyone, even our own self. He cares for us more than we care for ourselves. So let us let him be the one who takes care of us. Let us let him be the one who protects us. And we need to surrender to that protection. We need to surrender to that grace. We need to surrender to that holiness that holds the whole world together. We need to give up our identity so that we can understand his identity. And as long as we hold on to our identity, his identity will not be available to us. So may God help us develop that house of truth within us, made up of his qualities, so that he can reside within us and take us in the straight path towards the victory of coming to know him and being with him. And may that happen for each and every one of us. Amin. Amin. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.